In the early days of World War II, Japan needed to create a defensive buffer against attack from the United States and its allies, one that would ensure Japan mastery over East Asia and the Southwest Pacific. Japan was rapidly reaching that goal in the first 6 months of the war, beginning with the surprise attack on Pearl Harbor. The United States had to counter the swift Japanese offensives, and the opportunity to seize the initiative came on June 4th through 7th, 1942, when U.S. Navy dive bombers sunk 4 Japanese carriers, the Akagi, Soryu, Kaga, and Hiryu, at the Battle of Midway. For the time being, Japanese naval power was broken. Admiral Ernest J. King, Chief of Naval Operations, had to capitalize on the success of Midway as soon as possible. But amphibious operations require extensive planning to succeed, and that wasn't possible given the 2-month time frame faced by Navy planners. Admiral King wanted to maintain the initiative and to punch a hole in Japan's Pacific perimeter. Guadalcanal Island in the Solomons topped the list of naval objectives, but the invasion would be an improvisational, high-risk gamble that, if victorious, however, would give the U.S. the initiative in the South Pacific, strategically and operationally, while sending a figurative shot across the bow of Japan's military that American tactical strength was capable of ending Japan's string of early conquests. In this case, the reward far outweighed the risk, so King made the decision to move forward with his high-risk gamble. The invasion of Guadalcanal, Operation Watchtower, soon to be dubbed Operation Shoestring, was a go. The 1st Marine Division, under the command of Major General Alexander Vandergrift, landed on Guadalcanal on August 7, 1942, and rapidly seized an unfinished airfield. The Japanese construction parties fled into the jungle, leaving behind their food supplies, construction equipment, and building materials. Once ashore, the Marines were met by Australian Coast Watcher Captain W.F. Martin Clemens and his group of native scouts that had been isolated on the island since the Japanese occupation began. The scouts under his command would be invaluable to the Marines in the weeks to come. The very next evening, Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher, commander of Naval Task Force 61, requested and received permission to pull out of harm's way in order to save the precious Navy transports and carriers endangered by fighting in the Battle of Savo Island. That move left the Marines alone without artillery, half of their food supplies, and no 1,000-man reserve force. Vandergrift and his 10,000 Marines on Guadalcanal had to survive indefinitely on Japanese supplies they had captured in the initial invasion. The Marines set up a defensive perimeter around the airstrip and finished building it with captured Japanese construction equipment. The airstrip was completed on August 17th. Fighters and dive bombers arrived soon after. The airstrip was christened Henderson Field, named after Major Loy Henderson, a Marine pilot killed on the first day of the Battle of Midway. The collection of aircraft at Henderson Field would be known as the Cactus Air Force and would provide close air support for the Marines on land while defending the airfield from Japanese bombers and attack ships. The Marines spent the rest of August fighting off Japanese banzai attacks aimed at Henderson Field. They were partially reinforced by the Seabees, a naval construction battalion, on September 1st. The Seabees would take over responsibility for maintaining Henderson Field. On the day the Marines landed, Rear Admiral Yamada Sadayoshi, commanding the 25th Air Flotilla in Rabaul, sent sorties to attack the Americans. That afternoon, elements of his 8th Fleet, under Vice Admiral Mikawa Gunichi, embarked for the Solomons. Then, Imperial General Headquarters tasked the 17th Army, under Lieutenant General Hayakutake Hirokichi, with recapturing Guadalcanal. The general, in turn, dispatched the Achiki Detachment from Guam 1,900 miles southeast to Guadalcanal in the Solomons. The detachment, named after its commander, Colonel Ichiki Kiyonao, had originally been charged with capturing Midway, but the U.S. Navy terminated their original mission. Nevertheless, the unit's 2,000 men were thoroughly infected with victory fever, believing the Americans would be inferior soldiers. Very soon, however, they would find out they were dead wrong. On September 12th, 13th, and 14th, Lieutenant Colonel Merritt Edson led his Marines to victory in the Battle of Bloody Ridge, or Edson Ridge as it became known. Edson's mission was to hold the ridge and prevent the Japanese from attacking Henderson Field directly behind the numbered Marine positions as shown in this picture. General Kiyotake Kawaguchi led 3,000 Japanese troops against 800 Marines, who withstood repeated banzai charges. The Japanese were everywhere, fighting hand-to-hand in the Marines' foxholes and gun pits, and filtering past forward positions to attack from the rear. When it was over, the Marines had 40 killed in action, compared to 600 dead Japanese. One Marine recalled, "When one wave was mowed down, another followed it into death." On October 13th, the first U.S. Army unit to land on Guadalcanal was the 164th Infantry Regiment, a National Guard outfit that was activated into federal service and assigned to the newly organized Americal Division under the command of Major General Alexander Patch. Their mission was to fight alongside the 1st Marine Division on the perimeter surrounding Henderson Field. On October 23rd through the 25th, the Japanese attacked the Army section of the Henderson Field perimeter with more banzai charges. The 164th withstood the charges, and the perimeter was secured. The Japanese lost 1,500 more men by battle's end. By December, the battle-hardened but fatigued and malaria-ridden 1st Marine Division had to be sent away for rest and recuperation. That left the entire Americal Division, plus the Marine regiments and artillery battalions, to carry on, but Guadalcanal became, for the most part, a U.S. Army operation. During all the land fighting, multiple naval battles were fought for the slot, pictured here, between August and November, including the battles of Savo Island, Cape Esperance, 1st and 2nd Guadalcanal, and Tassafaronga. So intense were those battles, the waters around Guadalcanal were called Iron Bottom Sound. But in October, during another encounter southeast of the slot, in the Battle of Santa Cruz Islands, the Japanese managed to deliver a crushing morale buster to the U.S. Navy when they sunk the USS Hornet, the same aircraft carrier that just 6 months earlier had launched Jimmy Doolittle's B-25s for their attack on Tokyo. By December of 42, the U.S. fleet had won control of the slot with overwhelming naval power and by Marine aircraft squadrons flying from Henderson Field. The Japanese could no longer be reinforced by troop transports or supplied except by submarine. On December 9th, the 1st Marine Division was relieved by the 2nd Marine Division and the 35th Infantry Division. The 1st Marines suffered about 1,800 casualties and around 8,000 cases of malaria over the course of their Guadalcanal campaign. By early February 1943, the Japanese Imperial Group headquarters ordered the evacuation of Guadalcanal. The withdrawal was done in secrecy, with about 13,000 Japanese troops removed from the island. The Battle of Guadalcanal was over.